Hello, my name is Steven, and I'm here with Edward, Bobby, Chris, and Den. And now we'll talk about the impact of peer support and the difference it has made in our lives. Has your life improved since you've been involved with peer support?
I mean, definitely. I can't imagine my life without peer support now, but there were so many years that I just kept bottling everything up inside. I mean, in 1998, I found out I was positive. I felt like there was nowhere to go to talk to. I didn't feel like my support network of family at that time was a place I could talk about it. So when peer support came into my life, it was like this unleashing of years of things that I had inside. And they say you're as sick as your secrets, and I think that there's a truth to that, because from the moment that these groups started for me, it's like I started this slow healing process. And it's been ever since. And I go to peer support groups for a lot of different things. I mean, yes, we're talking about HIV, but I'll just tell you, I've had recovery issues, and I mean, not to get in too much detail, but I go to peer support for a lot of different things, because I like to talk with people who have who know what I've been through, and who can empathize, have compassion, who can offer feedback, all of it. So of course it's improved my life.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. I don't know how, where I'd be or like what I'd be doing, because I intend to be someone who is in here a lot, and so having a place to go where I can kind of let it out, and then kind of there's almost like a camaraderie even in the relation that I'm not the only one thinking about these things and worrying about these things. Yeah, I think it's
right on.
No, it has made a profound impact in my life. Coming from an area in Virginia where just HIV is swept under the rug, nobody wants to talk about it, nobody wants to deal with it. I mean, even access to medical care up until recently was very scarce. To come out here and then to just be with other people going through the same things I'm going through, it's made a profound difference, because I hid it. I just didn't want to deal with it. I tried to ignore it, and it just kept, like you said, it would just keep bottling up inside and growing and just festering. And when I finally was able to let it out and talk about my feelings and just like lay all my shit on the table and say, this is me, this is what's going on, the weight that came off was just absolutely amazing. I just cannot, it's hard to describe in words in some ways.
My life was significantly improved because of the peer support I received, in particular at SASG. For one, it was the place where I could go after doctor's appointments and exams and consultations and say, this is what they're telling me, and I needed the non-medical peer perspective, that feedback. And no matter how much you read and no matter how many experts you talk to, you need the guys who actually have gone through it. And where I knew to get that was at SASG. And everybody there was somebody there who had seen that doctor or gone to that clinic or that pharmacy and been on that medication, and without that feedback and that advice and that, the care and the love, it would have been extremely lonely. And so loneliness was the first thing that went away, and that improved my life greatly.
It's interesting that you brought up the online perspective, because yes, there is a lot of online information, and unfortunately some of it's non-truthful, and then there's truthful, and unless you really know what you're dealing with, you don't know what is truth and what's not. So I think the services provided at Seattle area support groups doing peer support lets you like, okay, I just read this online. Is this really true? I mean, have you guys experienced it? I mean, it's one thing to go to your doctor because they're only going to tell you from a medical perspective. So I think that peer support is very valuable when trying to also disseminate truth.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the main difference between your own support system of family and friends versus peer support?
For me, probably the first difference is that my family and my friends at the time had no idea what living with HIV was like. So going to the groups and the meetings and meeting the people who were at those meetings, there's information, there was suggestions, and then even just experiences. So that's something that family and friends, I mean, I actually hid it from my family and friends for years until I couldn't anymore. But yeah, so it's not really, I don't know if it was, well, personally it was definitely a negative kind of area to talk about, so I didn't want to bring it up with family and friends at all. I needed the people in those meetings who at first were strangers, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, when I found out, I had a small group of friends that I told about 2 or 3 of them, and I got that reaction, oh, I'm so sorry, and all the loving, the hugging, and all that stuff, but they really couldn't relate. It was just like, we're there for you, we just don't know how to be there for you, what do you need, and there was all this uncertainty. And I did not want to tell my family. I, in some ways, still don't want to tell them. My mom only found out because the guy that gave it to me told her. So, that's been a very interesting process, because my mom is not exactly the most gay-friendly, I will put it. So, and then when I moved to Washington and I wanted to connect with people that had it, because I never met another person that did. It was just, it was so interesting to finally be able to like, oh, you have it, you can relate. I feel a connection to this, and I don't feel like I'm going through things alone.
Well, for me, the support from my family, they love me, they support me, but it was sort of a don't ask, don't tell policy. And so my mom said, I love you, get better. And the friends I had at the time, like it just was said here, none of whom had HIV, and it was, I'm so sorry, is there something I can do? And then they would discuss how they think I would have gotten it, or just demonstrated some ignorance that surprised me for reasonably intelligent people. So it was the peers who had it and were living through it and surviving that could identify and empathize and be there on a day-to-day, sometimes hourly by hourly support basis, and so there was no comparison.
For me, I loved hearing just the 3 of your perspectives, because I told my family too, and to this day, that's 15 years ago, to this day my mom, how she approaches it is she says, how is your health? And that's about as far into it as we go. And that's my family, that's my permanent family, and it's going to these peer groups and hearing your experiences about you and your family that helps me cope with mine, because I don't really like how mine is coping, but I can't necessarily change them, right? But I feel better because I know other people's experience, all across the spectrum. And I remember too telling my friends, and I remember one friend in particular, she got mad at me. She was like, oh, wait, you told so-and-so and so-and-so before you told me, and it totally turned into something else. And I remember I had to support my friends, with my getting HIV, and I was like, listen, this is kind of counterproductive, so it's just funny, you know what I mean? But when you're with people who are going through the same thing, it's like we can have real conversations. I mean, just this right now was more productive than me telling, my friends originally, and I got more from it. You know what I mean?
Yes. When I told my aunt somehow knew something was going on, and she forced it out of me, and when I told her, she cried, and I rolled my eyes. I was like, okay. Right. But yeah, it's just a completely different experience when you're like talking to a group of peers,
yeah, where
it's more of understanding. This is a pity.
Yeah. But that's what it comes down to, and that's what peer support is. It's us coming together to support one another.
Right.
We all know what we're going through because we've all had that talk with the doctor. You're diagnosed with HIV, and you're kind of left with, what do I do now? Do I, try to seek support from people who don't know what I'm going through, or to find people who know what I'm going through and to sort of get together and try to work through all this.
It seems like a no-brainer, right?
Right.
Okay.
It kind of does.
Yeah.
But, you know, like when not knowing where services are and things like that, it can be really difficult. And then when, like for me, when I tried to look to family and friends, it's like they didn't know what to say to me.
Right.
They had no idea.
Right.
And yeah, so once I found Seattle area support groups and I was able to deal with my stuff and things like that, life got a lot better.
You know, it's funny because like, I'll just say it, I'm getting older, I'm in my 40s, and like that's been an issue for me, is just aging as a gay man, and Seattle area support groups actually has a group for that. It has a group for aging gay men, and that's what it's about. You know what I mean? It's like, what am I going through, and having this organization that has something to deal with it. So it's awesome.
So let's go ahead and wrap it up with this final question of, what is your role in peer support today?
My role in peer support has evolved over the years. From 5 years ago when I first set foot at SASG, walked up the stairs to the newly diagnosed group, to going through facilitator training and actually becoming a facilitator of the group, to becoming a trainer of other facilitators, and now I have the wonderful pleasure of sitting on the board of directors for it. It's just amazing the journey that I've been able to take and how it's empowered me to just do more and to give back, because SASG has given so much to me, and now I have the ability to give so much back to it and enrich others and help them through their journeys.
For me, my recovery and my health is contingent on my recovery, is entirely based on the peer support I receive in the community, and the sort of the capital of that is Seattle Area Support Group, SASG. I'm transitioning from the receiving phase to the giving phase, and I know that I could go to Seattle Area Support Group, SASG, and find out how I can get involved. I already know how I can because I'm sitting with some guys, and I know the paths they've taken to give back and the support that they're involved in. And so for me, my involvement right now is still receiving the support and the information and the love and caring.
Well, yeah, I'm just still a recipient of all the services there. I still use those groups and process my own stuff, but I am a leader too in various groups. I'm a big believer in peer support, not only for HIV, but for addiction issues and recovery and all of that. So I'm actually a mental health counselor right now, and there's a huge peer support network at the hospital. And I'll tell you, people, it's just peer support in general. It's people with mental health issues. They have specific issues, people who are bipolar, schizophrenic, who are on the meds, and it's more believable when they hear what's going on from someone else who has lived experience. So it's a large part of my life.
I think a lot of what was just said is really beautiful. I personally am still a participant in these different groups and these different settings. But something that I can just recall, like it was yesterday, even though it was like 10 years ago, is how alone and scared I felt. So a lot of times I'll just kind of go so that, one, to get me out of myself and just kind of be there for all these other people who might need me just as much as I need them.
Yeah, and today I'm right along with all of you guys. Like I started coming to SASG almost 3.5 years ago, and just kept showing up, and today it's empowered me beyond my wildest imagination. I am now the program manager of Seattle Area Support Groups, and I get to go out and be a community leader, and at the same time still learn on a day-to-day basis and walk the journey with all of my other peers. So I want to thank everybody for coming out, and thank you for watching.